Hey guys, so today I'm going to be looking at things people could never forget. So yeah, let's just get right into the video. Getting a phone call at work to tell me that my wife's routine surgery had gone wrong due to a mistake and she was now in a coma in the ICU. I dropped everything and ran. What greeted me when I walked in was the stuff of nightmares. Tubes everywhere, machines beeping. My wife was in ICU for 23 days before they took her off life support and she died in my arms. Life has never been the same since. That's so sad. Well, one mistake. The fact that it was just a routine surgery as well. So they probably thought everything was going to be okay. So they probably weren't even able to say like, you know, I love you and all that before all this. Or like, you know. Man, that's so sad. At about 10 years old, I fell through ice on a pond. When I came back up, I smacked into ice. Instead of the hole I fell through, the water was too murky to see any light from the hole, and I thought that I was witnessing the end of my short life. I was lucky to find the opening again, but as I tried to get back up, the ice kept breaking and I'd go under again. The whole event probably lasted 30 seconds, but to me it was a lifetime. It's been 35 years, and I'm still nervous on a frozen body of water, even if cars and trucks are driving on it. Man, that's scary. That's like one of the things that I think about too. You know, like falling through ice and then the water just like drags you away from where you fell through and you just can't get back up again. Like you're just drowning underneath all the ice and water. Ah, scary. One night I was working in a rural old wooden gas station. A masked man kicked the door open and robbed me with a shotgun. He was more scared than I was, which made me more scared than he was. I got him out of there with the money and all the cigarettes. The next day, the newspaper published my name and address. What the heck? What do they have against this person? They published his name and address. For the person to rob his house now? Oh, dude. Someone's just not thinking, hey? Who the frick published that? My son's brain surgery. He had an epilepsy and had a small portion removed in 2020 to alleviate his seizures and give him a better quality of life. He spent a week with wires in his brain tracking his seizures as he had them in real time. They slowly stopped his anti-seizure meds to induce them. He had 26 in one night as he slept. Once it was enough data, they removed a portion of his brain near his speech and memory center. This was the location of his misfires. The general consensus was that he had a good chance of losing his speech and memory. His personality could disappear. After his surgery, as he was being taken back to his room, he raised his arm to touch his face. The physician told him not to, and my son said, "I'm not. I just want to touch it." He spoke before he was fully out of anesthesia. 3 days later, he was home. 3 days after that, he was being transported back for emergency surgery because of a nasty infection under his skull. The surgeon later said he was maybe 12 hours from dying if he hadn't been seen. He had no symptoms other than a gross drip. No pain, no fever, nothing. Another brain surgery and 6 weeks with a drain tube and monitor on him at home with nurse visits weekly. He is now seizure free and on a much lower dose of meds than he was previously. I spent a month in the children's center helplessly watching my son slip in and out of consciousness and have hundreds of seizures. The possibility of him waking up with no memories and no way to speak was horrifying to me as his father. So the scariest moment in my life, and keep in mind I've been shot, stabbed and beaten, was almost losing my 16-year-old child 3 times in 1 month. Wow, that's scary. I think it's the fact that there were like all these things that could happen and the doctor probably like walked them through it and was like, this could happen to your kid and you just have to accept it because that's just the best for them. What a scary surgery though, like being told that your son may lose his speech, may lose his memory, lose his personality, basically a new person or a kid who can't talk. Like you have to get ready for all of that. 5 years ago, we thought my father had been kidnapped for ransom. Those 3 to 4 days when we thought he was being held somewhere was absolute and sheer terror. Turns out he was killed on day 1. Oh my god. They didn't even give him an option to live. That's messed up. Watching my 3-year-old son wither away due to leukemia to the point he was so weak, he couldn't walk, sit up, talk, and we would have to hold his head in place so that he could watch Paw Patrol. He's now almost 4 and back to walking again, and seems to be winning this long hard battle. Oh, I'm happy. I'm happy that he's doing well and he's strong. About a month ago, my neighbor asked me to go check on her husband, which wasn't super out of the ordinary. I've done it before when she can't get a hold of him. Went into the garage, called for him, no response. Continued to walk through the house and found him on the floor of the TV room unresponsive, but still breathing. Snoring loudly with phlegm coming out of his nose and mouth. Called 911 for the first time in my life. Then had to call my neighbor to give her the news. Paramedics showed up and took him to the hospital before she arrived at home. He had a brain aneurysm ruptured and passed away a few hours later at the hospital. He was a wonderful man that was like a stand-in grandpa for my 3 kids who don't have any family in town. We are so grateful to have known him and the love and snacks he always shared with my babes. Yo, this is the scariest. Like, we've heard so many stories about this kind of thing happening. Like, someone just has this and they have no symptoms, they don't know, and it just happens. That's scary. A few years ago, in the dead of the night, my husband and I were woken up by the unmistakable sound of glass shattering at around 3 a.m. Naturally, we assumed that someone was breaking into our house. Our hearts were in our mouths, but we weren't going to split up, so we went downstairs together to check it out. I have never been so scared as when we had to go through our house, room by room, to make sure there wasn't an intruder. But there wasn't, and none of the windows were broken. We were super confused until we walked into the bathroom. Turns out tempered glass shower doors have a reputation for randomly exploding. If a crack forms, it very slowly spreads across the rest of the glass, and when it crosses a certain threshold, the whole thing shatters. Ours just happened to be at 3 a.m. What the heck? I'll be terrified. Yeah, I would think someone broke in too, man. What the heck? How dare the glass break like that? I was chased through the woods by a stranger with a bat. He seemed hell-bent on beating my brains in. I jumped in a river, held my breath, and sunk to the bottom. I let the current of the river take me as far as I could until I needed another breath of air. When I came up, I couldn't see him anymore. Crossed the river and hid in the woods until it got dark and hiked home. What the frickities? What in the... Okay, they jumped into a frickin' river? What? Okay, I guess they're not living in Australia, eh? You know, I'll be scared. I'd be like, ain't no way, man. Ain't no way I'm jumping in the river. Why were they getting chased? Oh, it says here, I was on a trail and wound up coming to a house where a little girl was playing in the yard. I waved and kept walking along the trail when she screamed as loud as she could, "Dad, there's someone in the yard." She was probably 150 feet away near her front door. Before I could say anything, this guy smashes open his screen door, running full tilt at me while holding the bat. I took off running while he kept screaming, "Come here," over and over again. I lost him while in the woods. I could hear him getting closer, so I jumped through a bush and into the river. Just because this little kid said something. Yo, what the heck? There's someone in the yard. That could be the mailman. Like, bro, what happened? Why did he get so agitated and angry and aggressive? Maybe something happened to his kid before, eh? Maybe like someone tried to kidnap his kid before and then he's just on alert. I don't know, but that's some bad timing. I was in hospital for months because of something else. Couldn't get up and had already lost a ton of weight, which made me severely underweight. Then caught some kind of virus. The doctors couldn't figure out what it was and got weaker every day. I couldn't eat or drink and vomited all the time. At some point, what I spat out was entirely black, probably dried blood. I can hardly remember that time of my life. But looking in the mirror and seeing my bloodshot eyes where all the veins popped and my chin and neck with burns from the acidity in stomach fluid and my skinny arms and ribs was terrifying. I think I was around 14 at the time and was sure I'd die. It went on for days and then just stopped. We thought it was that hospital virus that happens sometimes, but apparently it wasn't. Still don't know what happened and how I survived. What? They still don't know what it was, but they literally like spat out blood? Isn't that like a sign that something is very wrong? Well, they're better now, right? I think they should still get like regular checkups though. That sounds terrifying. My mother woke me up in the middle of the night to tell me she had been robbed and stabbed. I had to stay with her while paramedics arrived, helped her clean the wound, and put pressure on it. After she was taken to the hospital, the cops told me it was most likely self-inflicted. I will never forget the feeling I had when she told me and the sight of it. I will also never forget the feeling of being told my mother was suicidal to the point of stabbing herself. One of the most terrifying, troubling nights of my life. And unfortunately, I have more stories that are wildly similar to that. Oh my gosh. Dude, I think that would traumatize me a little bit, honestly. Like, if you didn't know your mum was feeling this way. When I was 7 years old, I got a Furby for Christmas. At the time, I was ecstatic as I really wanted one. Now Furbies have their own language, which one of my words they said sounded suspiciously like my name. My Furby couldn't be turned off. It required a tiny screwdriver that we didn't have or 7-year-old me couldn't find. Furbies tend to talk whenever they feel like, so I shoved my Furby in my closet and the battery started to die. With the diminishing battery life, the Furby started to have a less than friendly sound. One night at around 3 a.m, I wake up to the demonic sound of my low battery Furby saying my name. Terrified 7-year-old me evicted Furby the next morning. Dude, that sounds horrifying, man. The fact that they shoved it in the closet so they could just hear that sound coming from the closet. And you know where all the monsters lurk, in the closet. I was 13 years old and my dad had just picked me up from high school, but had my grandma in the car too, so I sat in the back seat. We were driving home and my grandma wanted to quickly run into a shop, so we parked up outside the shop. My gran was having trouble getting up the steps out front of the shop, so my dad jumped out to help her. At that exact moment, I noticed my dad's gold chain he lost a couple of weeks ago under the seat in front of me, so I ducked down and reached under to get it. As I'm trying to reach under the seat, someone got in the car. I looked up and they kind of looked like my dad from behind, so I said, "Dad?" They turned around and I immediately saw it wasn't my dad. They clearly didn't realize anyone else was in the car and were a little startled, but quickly replied, "Sit back and shut up. I'll let you out in a minute." The key was still in ignition and they started the car and peeled off. I have never really felt fear like it. All the worst kinds of thoughts rushed through my head and I was convinced they had stolen the car because I was in it, but they drove down a couple of streets and pulled over and just said, "Okay, get out." I ran back to the shop and halfway ran straight into the arms of my dad, who had been running after the car. I could literally feel the relief that he was feeling through that hug. Oh my gosh, yo, what the heck? This is why you should never leave the keys in the car. That's so freaking dangerous, man. The fact that one little mistake and you could just lose your kid like that. Okay, at least this person was nice enough to leave the kids alone. You know, because some people, they take the car, take the kid with them, and kill the kid. So thank gosh that didn't happen. Thank gosh. Well, that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me in the comments down below what your thoughts are. And as always, thanks for watching. Hope you guys liked it. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!